know what she said, she might just change your life.
And welcome back. I'm Christine Bentley in studio with Sharon Caddy, and we are saying hello to Dale Curd, who is the star of a new show that's debuting tonight.
Well, thank you for having me.
Welcome, yeah.
Yeah, the show's called Hello Goodbye, and that's a great intro track, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Isn't it like a standard?
Now, you tell anybody who hasn't seen the promos.
I've seen the promos.
You've seen the promos.
Caught my interest right away.
But tell them the sort of the basis of the show, the synopsis.
Well, it's a really simple idea, which I think is probably, excuse me, why it's such a beautiful idea. The frog in my throat. You know that there's that moment when you go to an airport and you're looking around, especially if you're a little early and you're waiting for someone, and you're looking around and you see all kinds of people leaning against the pillars with balloons and flowers and signs. And if you're like me, you're kind of curious about, well, who are they waiting for, and why are they so excited, or why are they there with this massive bouquet of flowers?
What's the story?
Exactly.
Who are they?
What's
who
the
are
story?
They waiting for?
And so that's what I do. I go up and I ask them, and I essentially say to them, "Can you tell me, who you're waiting for? If they're in arrivals or if they're in departures, who are you saying goodbye to? And what's the story? What's the backstory? What's the relationship about?" And interestingly enough, and I was a little apprehensive when I first started the show because I wasn't sure what the response would be from people when I would walk up to them. Surprisingly, and our batting average was about 98%.
Wow.
Most of the, I know, isn't that
That's
incredible?
huge.
Isn't that incredible?
Yeah.
Because you guys are both seasoned interviewers, right?
Yeah.
So I can talk to you, I
Yeah.
can relate to you at that level. I would walk up to people, perfect strangers, and say, "Hey, who are you waiting for? And can you tell me more about that?" And they would be so open. It was just an incredible experience.
Do you think, Dale, on some level, it's sort of like that plane condition that people have? When I get on a plane, you've been on a plane, a total stranger sitting beside you will tell you their whole life story. It's sort of like time suspense. If you walked up to them at the grocery store and said, "So, what are you doing here?" They would say, "You know what, I'm going to call the security if you don't leave me alone. Like,
Right.
You're
Right.
stalking me. Get away."
Yeah, get away.
But there's something about being at an airport. There's something about new beginnings or there's something
I think
where
it
it's
broadens.
a parallel universe.
I think it broadens I think it's about travel. I think it is really about how we are taught to think about travel, conditioned in terms of the traveling experience, we will, even on a train, we will sit down beside someone on a train, even if we're going just from, say, Toronto to Montreal. We'll sit on the train and we'll actually open up a conversation with someone, and we will share something very personal with that person, then they with us, and then we'll never see them again.
Yeah.
And I think
It's
that's so
unique.
true about travel. Another experience, which is so unique, is that I watched people come out in arrivals, come out and knowing that nobody was there to wait for them, because you can tell by the way they come out the door, right,
Yeah.
that they're just hustling through. But even though they know nobody is waiting for them, there's still this look that they give that they're kind of hoping.
They scan
Yeah.
the crowd.
Exactly.
Well-
I always thought that would be a great business model. You just show up, and people pay you to show up, and you just hold up random signs. you
Well,
know?
there's a psychology to the people who are picking up as well, though. And I kind of always think back to the movie When Harry Met Sally, and where Billy Crystal runs into Meg Ryan in the
Right.
airport, and he said, "Well, clearly you're at the beginning of a relationship because."
Right, because this is something you do at the
Yeah.
beginning of a relationship, right?
That's right.
It's
So
interesting.
there's a psychology to the people that are there to pick up, whether it's you have to or whether it's you want to.
Absolutely, and I ran into people like that for sure. I ran into people who they were meeting this family member sort of out of obligation
Yes.
in a way, like, well, why are you here? Well, I'm the one that drew the short
straw.
straw, right, to be here. But then when you explore the relationship a little deeper, there was actually a lot more meaning going on there. Like I remember speaking with a man who was picking up his father. His father was coming here from Jamaica, ill health, so this was sort of one of the last few times that he was going to make it to Canada. And this, this guy drew the short straw. He has brothers here. He drew the short straw, so to speak. But he had this really complex relationship with his dad, and it's such that there were things he wanted to say to his dad that he never had, and he was really wrestling with how to get them across. His dad, probably not the most emotionally expressive man, hadn't said things to his son that the son was waiting to hear. And by son, I don't mean a young son. I mean, this is a guy in his late 40s, early 50s, and there was this moment where it was all going to come together. right? He was greeting his dad, and he was talking to me about that moment.
Did you find that people generally opened up to the degree that you expected them to? Like, for example, you're talking about a train trip to Montreal where somebody tells you, I mean, I've had people on a plane tell me everything about their marriage and what's wrong with it and what are they going to do, and they'll never see me again. And there's a comfort in that. You can open up to a complete stranger where you wouldn't even to your friend, because your friend is going to have dinner with you and your husband next week.
Right, there's safety in the anonymity,
Exactly.
right, of the experience.
So,
and
did
so,
you find that?
more so, I would say. Like
Even though they knew it was going to be on the air?
Even though they knew, and I think a lot of this had to do with, I think, the alchemy of the conversation. So we were having a conversation versus an interview. So I had that style about me. More than just asking questions, it's kind of like exploring a conversation. And I also think that the way we shot the show contributed to it as well, in that the cameras were so far back that people forgot, I forgot sometimes, that we were actually being shot or we were being filmed, because everybody blended, all of our crew kind of blended into the crowd. And so I found that sometimes, and there was always a moment in a conversation where somebody would turn their body towards me, take a step in a bit closer, and that's when I knew that the conversation was really going to open up, and they would tell me things like it's almost like they knew that I was listening, so now they have permission to tell me more and more and more.
That's cool. You're listening to What She Said on Sirius XM 167, Canada Talks. Sharon Caddy, Christine Bentley, and our guest in studio, the host of Hello Goodbye, debuting tonight on CBC, Dale Curd. Now, you are a practicing psychotherapist.
I am.
So coming into the role, though, as, well, practicing psychotherapist, but a host and an interviewer, which is, I guess, somewhat different than what you practice regularly. How did you approach this role?
Well, that's, I get asked that question a lot, like whether me being a therapist had something to do with the experience. And I think the only piece of being a therapist that I think contributed is that I know how to listen. I'm kind of trained on how to listen to people. It's a form of listening called active listening. So I watch and listen more with my eyes than sometimes with my ears. I'm really paying attention to body language. And I also know how to listen and participate in a conversation so that the other person almost sees me as a blank slate. I'm not inserting too much of myself in the conversation or steering it in a certain direction. So I found that people were really open to that people were craving being listened to. I had many people tell me after I spoke with them, wow, I've been wanting to tell my sister this, or I've been wanting to tell my mother this, and in talking it out with you, I now know how to approach it. And that to me that's really, I think, what we all crave. We kind of crave this opportunity just to express what's in our heads.
Big picture, do you think this says something about society today in terms of our human connections? Because people are texting and emailing, and sometimes I think, why don't you just pick up the phone and talk to me?
We've lost
Because
that direct contact.
I like that face-to-face, but people just don't seem to have the time.
People are breaking up and making up through text. And I think that's indicative of what's really what you're talking about, is that we're sharing a lot of information, we're sharing a lot of details, but we're actually not connecting. We're not relating to each other. And those moments to relate are few and far between, those in-person moments to actually connect.
Do you think people crave that, though?
Yes. Yeah, hands down, I think. And that was my experience of being at the airport, that people were so warm to the experience of being related to, and I would be in the middle of a conversation with someone, and they would really sort of organically just ask me, so what do you think about that? Like, do you think that's the way it should be? And I'd have to sort of switch gears right in the moment and put my just a guy hat sort of on and go, yeah, I think that is kind of, maybe you should see it that way.
So you never said to somebody, look, you do remember, you don't even know me.
No,
but you must have a skill, obviously, even not being a professional interviewer, in that you do talk to people and you do know how to draw people out and you do know how to read the signs.
I think I know.
And make them comfortable.
I think certainly I know how to make people comfortable. I've always had this ability. It's something my dad and my mom put into me, I think, quite early, and that is this. In England, there's this saying, to be able to talk to princes as well as paupers.
Yes.
And I think they put that in me very, very early. I grew up in a small town outside of in Muskoka. I've returned back there after 40 years. So I think I understand this ability, and I have this ability to be able to talk to anybody kind of at any time. And that is an essential skill in life. It's something I'm trying to get my own kids to grasp. That there's something about just conversing and opening up and talking to someone that I think is really important.
Yeah, and sometimes it's not just about direct information. It's not just talking to somebody to say, turn left and then right at the next street. Sometimes it's just the pleasure of the connection,
Right.
whatever it may be, whether it's serious or not serious. And you seem to be able to do that on any level. And at an airport, were you surprised by any of the conversations?
I was. There were many times that I was surprised. I was surprised by the depth. I was surprised by the number of experiences that people had in their life. I was really surprised by, I had a great conversation with a woman who was waiting for a man that she met online.
Wow.
Uh-oh.
And I
That's
thought,
interesting.
that's where I thought it was going to go, right?
Yeah.
I thought it was going to go in the uh-oh. But then she sort of unpacks more of the story, and it comes out that she meets this man online because they're both solo parent caregivers for severely mentally and physically challenged adults. So they both have sons in their 20s who are severely mentally and physically disabled, and they have met on an online forum. So they've been asking each other questions about what it is to care for their children. And out of that caring kind of Q&A with each other over the course of about 10 months, they develop a relationship. And then he takes the initiative. He says, I'd like to, if you're open to it, take this outside of the forum and just chat with you. And out of that, they develop a relationship. And out of that, they've had a couple of face-to-face meetings. And so she's standing there waiting.
Story.
Oh, it's a beautiful story. I get goosebumps talking about it.
Beautiful.
Yeah, and she's waiting for him. And he's coming in. And he comes down the ramp. And he's this big, tall guy. And this woman is gushing. And she is so in love with this guy, And I look at,
goosebumps.
I know.
I'm going to start crying.
And I look at all that they've gone through to actually find each other and all that is challenging about their relationship. People talk about how hard love is anyways, right? And to have a relationship. And how many obstacles that these two actually have to sort of navigate as a couple. And they do it.
You know what I love about this? It's sort of reality, but it's really almost docu-reality
It's
in that
human.
it happens on the spot. It's not staged. I'd like to come and just hang around and carry the camera bag. I mean, I would be crying at that story. I would have been in tears.
There were many, I got to tell you, and we have some really talented, seasoned television people in our crew, our family, I'll call them, because they really are like a family. You can't go through an experience like this over the course of the summer and not sort of have a family form. And there would be many moments that I would come back from actually doing the interview or the conversation. I'd step back to our video village, if you will. And they'd be wiping their eyes, and nice job, man. That was a good job. And I'd be like, oh, guys, are you okay? And they were like, oh man, that was too hard. You had to see this because of course they're seeing it in a very different way than I'm seeing. I'm seeing the conversation like I'm talking with you guys,
right.
like sort of one-on-one. But they're seeing it on several different monitors from several different angles, and so it looks so much richer in a way for
And
them.
with the audio.
I just can't wait. So
Yeah.
it's on CBC. It starts tonight. What time?
8:30,
8:30. An
Eastern.
hour long.
half an hour long.
Half an hour long, and it's weekly.
It is weekly, yes, yeah. So it's every Friday at 8:30 on CBC.
What a way to start the weekend.
That's my kind of reality TV, though,
Yeah.
I'll tell you.
It's beautiful, isn't it?
Yeah,
absolutely.
I'll watch that.
Like, do you think we? Some people are saying, Dale, do you think we need this now? Is this the kind of
Yes,
reality that we
yes.
actually need? And I think
Because
it
it's
is.
promoting connection, human connection. And, people having conversations about their lives, having a place to, somebody who cares.
Mm-hmm.
Click the channel subscribe button for full-length interviews and more from What She Said here on YouTube.